Hello there. I have been promising for a number of videos now to talk about my experience of and decision making about the system that we put into our home here in northern Colorado. We're actually in Fort Collins, which for those of you who don't know is about 30 miles south of the Wyoming border. We're about an hour's drive, about 60 miles north of Denver, and we're on what's known as the Front Range, which means we're just to the east of the Rockies. Literally, where the plains suddenly go crazy and go up to the Rockies, we're there, right next to Rocky Mountain National Park. So Fort Collins, town of about 170,000 people. We moved here from Austin, Texas about 18 months ago. And over the summer period of 2024, we decided to put in a PV system. Now, I should tell you a bit about the house first. My wife and I both work from home. We have two small kids. We also have lots of other kids as well. And so we're kind of an intergenerational family. At any one point, there's typically 7 of us living here. And now we've built out the basement. We're at just over 6,000 square feet, which I do accept is quite a big house. We also have 2 really small, really rubbish air conditioning units, and those probably need to be replaced, will be replaced probably next year or perhaps the year after, probably with a heat pump. So, another reason to have another video, I suppose, but also it'll make life better. So Fort Collins has interesting weather. We have pretty warm summers. I mean, not Texas hot perhaps, but it will get to 100 degrees, which is a number in Celsius that I'll put on the screen. But it does cool down quite significantly in the evenings because we're at about 5,000 feet. So you need air conditioning during the day in the summer, but you probably could get away with just opening a window or having an all-house fan in the evenings or overnight, which was certainly not true in Texas, where it would be 90 degrees at 3 o'clock in the morning for most of July and August. So the power consumption of this house isn't too bad. We're also on gas, on the gas main. We have a gas fire. We have 2 furnaces in the house, one on each of the, we have 3 floors technically, but one on the main floor and one for the second floor, and then one in the basement. So our electricity usage was not too bad, actually. We were spending about $400, $450 a month in the summer of last year and the beginning of 2024 in that summer period. In the winter, we were paying something like $150 a month for electricity when it wasn't summer. In other words, we weren't running the air conditioning units. So as you can see from the picture, we decided to put some solar on the roof. Now, the houses around here, there's a whole estate of houses, and they all got solar panels on when they were built about 10 years ago, about 2014, 15, 16. Now, these solar panels, I honestly think that the builders got them from solar calculators. They must have got a job lot off Casio or something, because they were pathetically low powered. They were actually designed to basically look like tiles on the roof. With the 3.5 kilowatt inverter that we had in the basement previously, the maximum number I ever saw of them was about 600 watts. So we had to get rid of those because we needed the space for new proper PV. I suspect the original builders put them in because they probably got some sort of tax break when they built the estate all those years ago. And another time I'll talk about how some of the houses have still got them. A friend of mine who lives over the road, Brian, has them as well as new proper PV because they put the panels on the wrong side of his house. So we got some money back because they put the panels on the north-facing side of his house. He does generate a tiny little bit of electricity with it. And they didn't get in the way when he put real PV on. So, it's a win-win-win, I suppose. Anyway, so in Austin, Texas, we had a system from about 2021 onwards, and that was 32 kilowatt hours of lithium ion and 15.5 kilowatts of 330 watt panels on the roof. Here, we went a bit different. I went for an Enphase system. I liked the modularity of the Enphase 5Ps. They've now become pretty easily available, which apparently they were not at the beginning of this year. So I have 3 5 kilowatt hour PV battery or lithium phosphate batteries in the basement, because I didn't want them in the garage because the heat cycle would get a bit too extreme. So we stick them in the basement, which should be at perfectly sensible, normal living condition type temperatures. We have 12.5 kilowatts on the roof, and we have the solar arrays in an east array, a south array, and a west array. Now, as you can see on the screen now, we generate a lot more electricity on the south array, and there is a bit more room on the south array. So the first question you'd ask yourself is, why don't you just stick everything on the south? Well, there's a couple of reasons why you don't want to do that. The first one is, frankly, even a house this size is going to run out of space, and they become less efficient due to stupid shapes of roofs. But also because you actually want to have power throughout the day. There's no point in having a huge amount of power that you then have to shift off to the grid at some silly cheap price. You also want it right at the beginning of the day when everyone's just getting up and heaters are going on and kettles are boiling and all those things. And you want it late into the evening as well. So hence the reason that we have east, west and south facing arrays, even though the east and west arrays don't generate anything like the amount of electricity that the south array does. Having said that, we've only actually had the system up and running a month or so. So we're well into the fall, autumn period of time, and therefore the sun is low and to the south most of the time. So we do expect in the summer for the east and west arrays to be significantly more balanced with the south array. We're about to find out. Now, we have not received an electricity bill yet, so I can't tell you how much money we've saved, but we have done some clever things. So one of the things that the local provider, Fort Collins Utility, does, it has peak hourly power, which is great, actually. So we pay something like 7.9 cents. It'll be on the screen. We pay a very low amount of money for most of the day. And then in the winter evenings, from like September through April, we pay 28 cents a kilowatt hour, which is not inexpensive electricity, but you only pay that for 4 hours, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. So a couple of things. Firstly, what we do is ensure that the batteries are fully charged at 5 o'clock in the evening, which honestly, most of the time, it's so sunny here that that's not been an issue at all as yet. But anyway, we make certain those batteries are fully charged. If they're not fully charged by about 4 o'clock, we actually grab power off the grid and pour it into the batteries at whatever that is, 8 cents a kilowatt hour. And then at 5 p.m., we stop using the grid completely and live off our battery until 9 p.m., at which point we then just sit on a relatively low 15% of battery charge until the morning, and then as the sun comes up, it starts charging the system and the thing repeats again. Now, have we managed to live off that in that 4 hour period? Can we only use 15 kilowatt hours? It's very close. Almost every day we get to the fully charged battery, and then at 5 p.m. we click over to using the battery. Often we get there just about. It's so close, it's crazy. But maybe for 10 minutes we're actually having to suck power out the grid. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is this is an L-shaped house with all the lovely things that go with an L-shaped house. So L-shaped houses, I always promised myself that I would never have an L-shaped house because my dad told me not to. Always get a square house, it's more efficient, he would say. He's right. But you don't get as much light in a square house as you do in an L-shaped one. So you pay your money, you take your choice. And then more importantly, this was the only house I could find that would fit us all. So we bought the L-shaped house. So L-shaped houses mean that you've got lots of rooms particularly some of the kids' bedrooms, which are exposed walls on 3 sides, which means that we have to keep some of the house at 76 degrees to keep my little lad's room at 70. So we don't do that. We put an oil-fired or an oil electric radiator in his bedroom to keep the chill off at night. And that worked pretty well. But he goes to bed about 7. He is 5. And as a result, we have the radiators on, and his sister also has a radiator on because her bedroom is north-facing and she's 3. As a result, we have not always managed to keep the battery going until until the high peak is over. We could probably fix that. It could probably not be quite so cold. We could probably do something with a sand battery or something. I tried that, by the way. I did a video, forgot to press record, and blew up. So, you know, I'm not doing that again. As soon as it's not quite so winter cold, I don't think that will be a problem. And of course, I could always add another battery. Now, here's a tip for you. However much PV you put on, you probably want to put on more later. As you're installing it, you're like, I should have put another 2 kilowatts on the roof. As soon as they put 3 batteries in the basement, you think, maybe I should have put a 4th one in. Now, it's way too early in our journey to tell if that's economically true, but anecdotally, I suspect it isn't true at all, right? 10 minutes of having to use 3 kilowatts an hour does not really justify another $5,000 or however much an Enphase 5P battery is. But if you're anything like me, and if you're watching this, you're probably a little bit like me, then you really hate the idea of running on peak power. So the next video, I hope we will have an electricity bill, and I hope to be all smiles and telling you how much we're saving. But I did want to give you an idea of this is what we've done. I have to say I'm very pleased so far. The vendor we used to put it all in has been excellent, but this isn't a sponsored video, so I'm not going to talk about those guys just yet. We're excited about what the system looks like and does. It feels good to have a system that means that if the power were to go out, not that we've had a single power cut since we moved here, but if it were to go out, we could basically run the house with without the grid pretty much indefinitely. And I guess unless it's covered in snow, or suddenly the wife decides we need to do 5 tons of washing, which with as many people in our house as we have might actually be the case. So long and short of it, we're pretty pleased with what we've got so far. I think the next video, or maybe the one after, will be about what the bills look like. And then we're going to start talking about, well, what did we do, right? Because one of the things that people said about my Texas house, where I only got 2 cents a kilowatt hour if I sold it back to the grid, which is frankly pathetic. A lot of people said, well, why don't you just run a crypto rig? I don't know. Why don't I just run a crypto rig? So we're going to investigate whether running a crypto rig would make any sense. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's going to make any sense at all, but we'll have a look at that. Another thing people talked about was, well, why don't you, with your low-cost electricity so low and your high electricity relatively so high, nearly triple the price, why don't you get a really big battery? And then as soon as you flip over to expensive electricity, simply pump all your power back into the grid. Well, one of the things I thought about doing is doing some maths on that. I don't actually have any intention at all, for fairly obvious life preservation reasons, of building my own battery, right? I'm not that guy, right? I used a bucket warmer the other day and nearly burnt down the garage, so we're not doing that. But we could have a look, and if you want to make in the comments some example or send me links to examples of people who've built batteries and said this is the battery and it was super cheap. However big a battery or however cheap your battery is, there's always some bugger who's gone off and built one for even less. So why don't we have a look at those, work out what everyone's doing with them, and see if it actually makes any money? Because what you could do is become effectively a virtual power station. Even if you ignore the solar on the roof, There is a little trick that my Enphase system already does. So we talked about this before, right? If it's not 100% charged by 4 p.m. in the afternoon, it charges it to 100%. Well, I could do that with some external battery. So why don't I do that and then fill that battery at 8 cents a kilowatt hour and then dump it all back into the grid at 28 cents a kilowatt hour at 5 p.m. Now, there must be some sort of return on investment on that. And of course, it depends on the cost of the batteries. So tell me about batteries that are out there. Tell me about the cheapest, craziest lead acid 400 whatever old truck batteries that I should plug together. And let's look at the maths. Because I'm a way better theorist than I am a practicalist. Anyway, there's our system. I do hope you think this is a journey worth at least staring at. And we will come back at the next one with some other super exciting topic, which might be our first electricity bill. And I genuinely have never been more excited about receiving an electricity bill. All right, everyone. Thanks for your time. See you again soon. Bye-bye.